Hello, I'm Michael Parloff. I've been a member of the flute faculty at Manhattan School of Music since 1985, and I'm recording this video message on my own experience with the coronavirus on Thursday, November 19, 2020, which happens to be exactly 8 months since I was first diagnosed with COVID-19. According to today's headlines, this also represents a rather grim milestone in the history of COVID-19 in our country, because we have now officially passed the 250,000 mark in deaths from coronavirus in the United States. I tested positively last March, not long after attending a friend's birthday celebration in Manhattan. And at that time, there were still no reported cases of COVID-19 in New York City. And so we all exhibited a lot of silly bravado in the way that we went around bumping elbows as if it were just a big joke. But I soon discovered that COVID-19 is not a joke. And by the middle of the following week, I had descended deep into the COVID ditch. I was confined to my bed with 103 fever. I had chills and aches and a deep, scratchy cough. I had no appetite whatsoever. I had zero energy. And these symptoms persisted for over 10 days. And during that time, I contracted a related case of pneumonia. All told, it was by far the worst and the longest illness I have ever experienced in my life. And while I was at my own low point, a beloved colleague from the Met Orchestra, a wonderful gentleman in his early 60s named Vince Leonti, died of the disease. And another close friend went into Mount Sinai Hospital at that time and found himself tethered to a ventilator for 9 days. And thank God he survived, but just barely. And with all of that in mind, I find it frankly distressing to continue to hear people claim 8 months into the pandemic that COVID-19 is no worse than the flu or a bad cold. In my own experience, this was in no way true. Last May, almost 2 months after I first tested positive for the disease, I still had this deep residual cough, and I was so physically depleted that a simple walk up and down the block felt like the Odyssey. Fortunately, I have now recovered. But my experience has given me this indelible memory of the disease itself, and it has also given me a deep respect for its destructive potential. It is a serious, life-threatening disease, and you do not want to get it. So if you or a family member have tested positive, if you have been found to be asymptomatic, if you've experienced a short or mild case of the disease, great. I am delighted for you. But please remember that the range of possible responses to this strange new virus run the gamut from completely asymptomatic to death. And just because you personally may not fall into a vulnerable demographic, this does not mean that you are incapable of contracting the disease and passing it along to a friend or a family member or a teacher, any of whom may be far more susceptible to its full force than you. And you do not want to be responsible for the illness or, God forbid, the death of a loved one. Now, the good news is that our leading scientists and epidemiologists are learning about this disease at a breakneck pace. Therapeutics have improved since I first contracted this disease last spring, and effective vaccines seem to be on the way. But it will be many months and possibly years before they can be widely distributed, and the time at which we are completely out of the COVID woods. And so until that time, please continue to be vigilant, consider the health of others as well as yourself, heed the advice of the true experts, all of whom agree that the most effective ways to limit the spread of COVID-19 at this time are to wear masks, avoid crowds, maintain social distancing, wash your hands frequently. And thank you very much for listening, and please stay safe and stay well.